Good afternoon, dear guests. For the ones who don't know me yet, my name is Elif and I'm the sales and educational consultant in Nuance Publishing. First of all, I hope you're all doing fine in this hectic period. As you may know, while publishing its own products, Nuance Publishing is also the distributor of both digital and published products of many companies, one of which is Build and Grow. Today, we're going to talk about one of our products, the Write It series. Having more than 20 years of teaching experience, I can say that writing process has never been so easy before. This is my tip for you. And we will have a question and answer session after the presentation. Certificate of attendance will be rolled out to everyone who requests. And during the Q&A session, we will drop a form of link into the chat box where you can enter your names and email addresses for your certificates along with a short survey. The webinar will be recorded and posted on Build and Grow YouTube channel. The link will also be sent to you with your certificates. Let me introduce you to our panelist, Ji-Young-koo. And Ji-Young-koo has an MA in TESOL from New York University. She also holds an MBA degree from the University of Genoa in Switzerland. She previously taught ESL students and developed the curriculum for ESL program at a public school in New York City. She currently works at Build and Grow as the Senior Global Marketing Manager, Teacher Trainer, and Academic Consultant. Hi, G. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. It's
Hey.
really nice to see you guys, even though we cannot see each other in person like I did in 2019, right? So it's even though it's like via Zoom session, I'm very glad that I have a chance to talk to you guys about our newest series, which is Write It. And for those who don't know me, my name is Ji Young Ko, and basically my job is traveling around the world and then meet teachers like you guys, discuss what you guys need, and then kind of the discussion have that discussion with the R&D team back home, and then we develop the material. And this writing series is actually, we are very inspired by Turkish teachers. Well, if you're not native speakers, teaching writing is very endless work kind of job. So many teachers who are not native speakers and then in that EFL setting, they kind of put this writing teaching aside and then they try to not to look at it that much. But one thing that I was very impressed by teachers in Turkey, they are taking this writing and then speaking in a very serious manner. So I hope if you are planning to teach writing with the younger ones, I think this might be a really nice start for you to think about how you can develop your writing lesson plan. So for like 50 minutes for an hour, I hope you get the useful ideas how you can develop the writing class through this workshop. So let's get going. So since you guys dragged yourself, even though it's during the lockdown, during the bad weather, these are the things that we're going to cover for an hour. So first, as I mentioned, well, teaching writing is not that easy, but we need to teach writing anyway at the end. So the main reason that why we need to teach writing, when writing is why that important, we're going to just discuss that a bit. And then after that, we're going to go into writing process. 4 stages, 9-step process, because we developed this series based on this writing process. So once you see these examples, you would understand better how you can build up this writing process with your students. And then at the end, I'm going to provide some of the teaching tips in your writing class. So next slide. Let's look at this, our reality in writing class. If you look at the first paper over here, they look familiar, right? I remember 1 or 2 students whose writing was exactly like this. And for students' side, I think whenever you bring out the writing subject or writing theme, first thing that that stuck in their mind is, oh, what can I write, right? So basically they're going to repeat the same sentence that they know over and over again. That's very common unless you provide the really nice input about the theme and then words and then sentence structure to your students. So this is our student side, I would say. And then second paper over here, it's teacher side. Whenever we want to correct our students' writing, I'm the same too. I don't know when to stop and then what not to include, right? You want to correct every mistakes and errors that your students might have. So at the end, their paper looks like this, right? So this, and then also this error correctioning and the mistake correctioning kind of give your students overwhelming feeling. So at the end, they kind of hate the writing, right? Because they think it's kind of the endless work and then the task that they're not going to conquer. So that's very common. But the thing is, there's a reason why we think we need to think writing as an important matters. I think this slide says much things about it. First, if you look at the numbers over here, I list down the activities that usually do in writing class: copywriting, dictation, and then writing itself. If you look at this copywriting over here, we often start copywriting with the younger ones. I call them minis, pre-human beings. So it's hard for them to write down sometimes even a word. So you show them a word and then they look at the text and then they think about their shapes and then their letter that they know, and then they transfer that into their writing, right? So copywriting with the younger ones, you can definitely start the copywriting exercise in your class as a part of your writing class. And often we get frustrated because we want to have a better outcome out of our students, but it's very natural. They cannot write their own. That's natural thing. I know that some parents are very ambitious for them to write down a one sentence after 10 English lessons, but probably that's not the reality that we are having. So copywriting is very proper activities that you can include in your writing class. And then once they get familiar with the words, especially phonics and then everything, then they can get to this dictation part. Over here, they listen and then they change that into their writing. So listening, and then in their brain, they're going to digest what they hear and then they change that into writing. So dictation looks very simple if you think that as activity, but at the same time, it's gonna be a really nice pre-activities for them to get ready to have these 3 stages, which is writing itself. But if you look at writing elements in writing, they are very complex. So if you look at the one piece of writing, and then let's say that writing piece does not have a nice topic sentence, or sequence is not quite right, or poor punctuation or their spelling, then we cannot say that writing piece is good, even though they just not master the one side of it. So when they develop those writing skills, they need to think about all those matters in their head. So it's pretty much intense activity for them to get prepared to have their own writing. So if you look at this flow over here, I highlighted certain words, right? So definitely this writing exercises enhance your students' capacity of thinking. So cognitive thinking capacity, they're going to develop the skill. So through this one, you can definitely lead them to be more independent and thinker, and also master of their own thoughts. So that's why we cannot overlook this writing in our classroom. And if you look at this 1 and 2, I mentioned about this text and then listening passages, right? So when you do the writing with your younger ones, always you need to be careful when you include those copywriting and then dictation activities with really nice proper model text, because that's gonna link them to have their own writing piece. So you want to have that as a really nice purpose to have this model text in their writing exercise. So once they have this nice model text and then have an activity to digest this model text, and it's easier for them to spark the ideas because they already have this nice sample. And then the one thing that they can think of is, oh, my case, I want to include this. For example, they're going to write up their favorite, their pet, like dog, cat, or parrot, you can name it. So they read the reading passages about their friend's pet, and then now they can apply what they have into their writing. So it's easier for them to think about their own like examples and then ideas. And at the same time, now they don't need to worry about the format too much because they already have that on their hand. So they're going to focus on meanings. So it's going to much easier for them to write something out of it. And then once they have this model text, always you need to keep that in mind. Just reading might not be enough for them to digest those model text. So one thing that I can recommend you is do some analysis with your students. Like simple things, how many sentences in this model text? And then what are the main themes? What about the sentence structure? Those kind of things. It's very important for them to look closely to understand what you expect from them. And then after that, rewriting might help them a lot to kind of apply what they have in their mind. And then last one, Zhangli approach is very nice ones too. If you think about any kind of standardized English exam, English standardized exam, the TOEFL or like IELTS, you can name it. Their writing exam has some formats, right? For example, compare, contrast, your opinion, agree or disagree. Once they get used to look at those genre, then it's easier for them to tackle that writing with any kind of theme that they might be given. So these are the very like as kind of beneficial point when you think about having a really nice model text and then do analysis activities with your students. So I hope that is clear enough. And then we're going to look at this writing process over here. And one of the scholars who mentioned about writing process, Tompkins, he mentioned about pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. Then before I get into deeper about this, I'm going to ask one question about that. Where is this chatting box over here? So through this 5 stages, what stages do you think is the most challenging for your students? Anyone who can share your answers with me? No? Or you didn't have your lunch yet, so you don't feel like answering the questions right now? That's fine. Whenever I talk to the teachers, they mentioned a lot about like publishing or drafting, revising. Aisha mentioned the drafting, and then German is the right pronunciation. And then you mentioned about words, right? I totally agree with you. Editing, because they don't have any clue what to kind of change and then what not to change, right? I totally agree with that. But the funny thing is, right? Right. Even it's hard for them to even start a sentence, right? That's very common. Because if you give them a piece of white paper and then tell them like, why don't you write down about your grandfather? And they're gonna write down like, I like my grandfather. I love him. I like to eat with him. Probably these kind of sentence that they're gonna write down. So if you give them some good examples about your grandpa's name, and then what do you like to do with him, and then your feelings when you do those things with him, and then one thing that you want them to tell him. If you give them this really nice format for them to follow, then they're going to have a very similar result at the end of this writing process. So over here, I do understand that sometimes it's really hard for them to generate the ideas. I totally agree with you. And then once they have that ideas, it's really hard for them to even tackle a sentence in a paragraph format. And then once they finish that, revising, editing, oh, it's too much work for them, right? And then publishing, they have certain difficulties as well too, right? Right. I agree with Aisha, because you have to have some, I think she mentioned about the theme over here. So once your students have a really nice flow of this writing process, it's easier for them to build a nice set of their own writing, because with the detailed planning over here, they have a better idea what kind of idea that they can include, and then what kind of examples to support that ideas. So it's much easier for them to start from scratch. And then through this like process, you can initiate to share, you can initiate for your students to share their writing with you, and also peers too. So this constant sharing about their ideas and then their product means constant improving, because if you just give them a piece of white paper, they just be quiet and then they write down something and then give that to you. That means they're gonna stuck in somewhere a bit below of their level, and then they're gonna be there with their final writing piece. So you don't want that happen. So this constant sharing means constant improving. And then also through this process, they gain some confidence, because the first two times might be hard for them to follow this process, but once they get used to do this kind of flow, that means they can overlook what they're thinking about. So it's very important for them to think critically and then also bring out their cognitive thinking to finish their writing. So that's why many scholars and then schools around the world, they stress out this writing process a lot, right? I bet you agree with me, right? So now we're going to go into these 4 writing stages. We kind of combine this revise and edit session all together, because revise sometimes means the contents, but for our students have a little difficulties to deal with the contents. So usually revise and edit means their editing process. So if you look at this pre-writing, writing, revise and editing and publishing, these are the 4 stages that we are going to lead our students to have an output. And the most important stage over here, I think I gave you a hint on the previous slide. So it's gonna be pre-writing stage. Do you agree with me? So pre-writing stage is very important for them to have a proper output, because the more, the better at the end. So if you look at this 9 writing steps over here. So if you look at this, we're going to extend a bit of this pre-writing stage for you to understand better, and also for you to lead your students easier with this process. So first, theme and words, they are really important. They need to understand the theme, what they're gonna write about. It's very important for them to get ready mentally and then think about their own experiences, their own thoughts and extra. And then for younger ones, sometimes that means the words. So you need to provide the proper words for them to use, right? And then you need to lead them to think about certain ideas to support these themes. And then after that, you're going to do the model analysis. You're going to provide a nice model for them to look at and then to digest. And then after that, they're going to rewrite the model text on their own. By doing these activities, they're going to remember further about these models that they just digest, and then they can apply that into their own writing. And then after that, you can lead them to have a bit of sentence structure practice. Well, I'm not a big fan of teaching grammar from the very early ages, to be honest. So for little ones, if you want them to familiar with a certain like paragraph, for example, I have blah, blah, blah. I have blah, blah, blah. The best way, to be honest, make them practice the sentence with lots of different ideas, right? By doing that, they're going to use those sentences in their writing. And also you're going to hear the sentence in their speaking too. So those are the proper practice for them to have, especially if you're teaching a young age group. And then after that, before they write, you want to provide us the nice piece of paper with the graphic organizer, and they're going to think about their idea in a nice like sequential way, and then they're ready to tackle their own writing over here. And then once they have finished their writing, then you can lead them to revise and then edit and then publishing. So this gonna be like 9 writing steps that we think it's very useful for teachers to kind of have those in their writing class. So we developed this writing series based on these 9 writing steps. So from now on, what we are going to do is, okay, we're going to look at Write It Beginner, which is, I think it's very cute book for pre-human beings, minis. So even though this is very simple writing exercises, but it's gonna have those 9 writing steps. So they will be very familiar with those writing steps. So it's gonna help them to have a better writing skill when they get older, when it becomes more academic and more complex. So here, so we're going to look at this book 1, Unit 4, My Monster, because I'm a big fan of monster. So I think it's a really cute topic to discuss. So task is gonna be writing a short essay, and then structure, the sentence structure that they need to acquire, it has, right? So they're going to use this sentence in their writing. Okay, so let's get going. So now we're going to start from get ready. Means, since we're going to discuss about monster, I want them to be familiar with different kinds of monster, and then I wanna check if they have any specific monster in their head. So it's gonna be a really nice, fun discussion session with your students. I'm not sure if you're doing a Zoom session with your students. this kind of thing, you can definitely do it with your students. So sometimes you can kind of find a cute like monster picture from the Google images and then post that on your like this PPT and then discuss that with your students. Might be a really nice kind of the fun preparation and then fun discussion. But at the same time, it's not gonna you don't need to like spend 5 hours to prepare that discussion for your students. So if you look at this, look and stick, then ask and answer. So for younger ones, some of them does not have very nice motor skills. So we provide a sticker so you can utilize this, or if you have some extra time, you can make them draw based on your description. That might be fun activities too. So ask the question, which monster is your favorite? So they're going to discuss, oh, I like this puppy yellow ones. Why do you think this is your favorite? Because it has 3 eyes. I always want to have 1 extra eyes, right? So you can definitely lead this discussion. And then the chart over here, when you discuss this kind of like preparation, kind of theme discussion, I always want to make some proof for them to use later on. So this little chart, you can write down your student's name over here, and then let's name all these monsters together. So this one is yellow puppy thing. So you can call this monster as a yellowy or greeny based on their color. You can discuss that. And then they can say which one is their favorite, and then you can mark on their name section. So it's gonna be a really nice whole activities, but they can use that till the end of this unit too. And if you're having just regular classroom, then one thing that I can suggest is use a sticky note. So make them write down their names, and then you can invite them to stick on top of their favorite monsters. So that's gonna be another one too. And this kind of the quiz section, I know that sometimes we don't have enough time, so we rush through this kind of a Q&A session, but actually this is really nice this can be really nice listening dictation exercise too. So it has 1 eye, 1 nose, and 2 mouth. It has short arms and long legs. Who is it? Can you find it over here? So you can make them cover this section, and then you just read the sentence, and then they listen, and then they find the monster that these sentences are describing. So this is kind of the one. And also you can definitely make them read and then find their monsters too, as you wish, I think. So let's get going. And this one is the word and an idea theme kind of section with them. So since they have to write a short essay about their monster, so these kind of the words that you can use to describe something or someone, right? In this case, monster. So if you look at this, ugly, short, cute, tall, chubby, and thin. So if you look at this card, I give them some kind of a hint over here, right? So if you look at the background of this card, the side part of the card, there certain cards are match, right? So if you look at this, for example, thin and chubby, so probably it's opposite meaning, right? So make them understand that thin means very slim, and then chubby has a bit of fat around, right? So make them understand with the picture, and then make them understand that this is match, but opposite meanings, right? And then short and tall is the same, and ugly and cute too. So this is one of the examples that you can find in the book. So they can look and trace, but if you look at them, they're buddy. So in their mind, they kind of understand the meaning based on this cartoon. And at the same time, you can give them some examples about tall, short, with the different pictures or cartoons. I think that might help them as well. And this is one of the cute like words activity too, because if you look at this like words and then blank spaces, so you kind of encourage them to think about the spelling and then words itself. So if your students are too low and then they're still having a little hard time to focus on you, then what I can do is I can just spread out the word card in advance. So they're going to have lots of clues around them. So they don't need to worry about, teacher, how can I say that? I don't know this, right? You might experience that kind of hell soon, right? So lead them to think about the word. If they're having a hard time, then invite them to find the same picture, and then they can look at the words and then they can copy, which is a really nice copywriting exercise. And this one, I'm going to give you a quiz over here. What word this might be, the second one? Anyone yet? You can write down that in the chat box. Oh, someone answered, but your name is surprisingly hard for me to pronunciate. So first one, Akyol, I think that must be your last name, right? Thank you a lot for answering the first. Ugly, it's the right. I think he's very cute. So I don't agree with that, but that's the one. Thank you for participating. I think you guys are on fire. Great. So this one is one of the examples too, but instead of just let them finish that into their book, and you can definitely change this a bit as a whole class activities or a bit more interaction with your students. And also this is really fun activity for you can do if you're having an online class with your students as well. So I'm gonna go to the next one over here. So now we are going to look at this model analysis over here. So as I mentioned, like you're going to have a really nice like reading passages, which is Emily's Imaginary Monster. Quite interesting, right? The reason why I covered this section, I know that teachers' tendency, whenever I play the audio, you don't listen to it and then you just read, right? That's our very natural thing, I guess. So I covered that sentence with my favorite Istanbul landmark, I would say, Galata Tower, is that right? So I found that the really nice cartoon with the Galata Tower with lots of monsters. So I covered this part with this nice cute illustration. And then what we are going to do now is we are going to listen to the audio. That what I want you to do is take out one of the piece of white paper near you or your abandoned mask like this. If you have any things over here, then take out your piece of white paper and then pen, and then listen and then draw Emily's imaginary monster. Are you guys ready? Good? Okay. So.
Track 9. Step 1. Read about Emily's imaginary monster.
My monster. Let me tell you about my monster. It is tall and thin. It has one eye, one nose, and two mouths. It has short arms and long legs. My monster is happy.
That's really cute. I really want to meet Emily's monster, right? You guys have the similar like picture like this over here, right? I bet you did a great job. So you can definitely lead your students with this one. Before they look at this like passages, they can draw, listen, and then draw. And then, or you can draw several monsters on around the classroom, and then right after they listen to the reading, these listening passages, they can find the right monster around the classroom and then get those for their groups or peer work, you can name it. So this is one of,
Track 9.
okay.
A monster.
I'm not gonna do this again. So let's get to the next pages over here. Before we go to the next pages, and then even though this is the simple listening and then reading passages, always recommendable to check their understanding. You can definitely do it with this yes or no, simple listening to the sentence and then find the right one kind of activity. And also you can make them sit quiet, read one sentence and then choose the answers and then check as a whole as you wish. Always good. And then now it's time to rewrite the model text. And then this one is a really nice doing analysis with your students too. And if you look at this cute graphic organizers, I'm not sure how many of you I already met during my Turkey trip like 2 years ago. But if you know me from my talks and then you kind of know the information that I'm a big fan of graphic organizer. I always think the graphic organizer is the teacher's best friend too, even though you are in English classroom. And if you look at this, my monster, cute little monster face, and then looks, face, body parts, and feelings, right? So these are basically telling to your students that these are your job to fill in, right? You need to talk about looks, face, body parts, and feelings when you write about your monster, basically. I think it's a really nice way to tell them what you expect from them. And then once they finish this graphic organizer, it's always better for them to have this in a paragraph format, right? Because at the end, they need to have this paragraph, not this graphic organizer. This is kind of the half done. So link this analysis session with the graphic organizer and then lead them to write down their own like paragraph over here. We finished the halfway, and then now sentence practice over here. And when we think about unscramble activity, we kind of don't think that activity as our writing activity. But actually, this is a really nice writing activity for them to think about sentence structure. So in this case, I think it's very useful when you have an online class because, as I mentioned, you can definitely use your PPT, the great skill that you have on your hand, and then show one chunk of the sentence by chunk of sentence, and then they're going to place that into the right order, right? So that's going to help them to understand the sentence structure, and then they're going to be familiar with words and then the orders and extra. So let's do the first one over here. Is there anyone who can finish this sentence? You can write that in your chat room. No one yet. Yes. German, is that right? Okay. Good. It has skinny arms and big feet. You did a great job. Thank you a lot for the participation. So you can definitely lead your students to do this, and it's one of a really fun activity as a whole class as well. sometimes if you have just a normal classroom, then I'm gonna write down this chunk in a really big piece of white paper. So they can definitely play on the floor, or if you have a big desk, then they can get together and then they're gonna make those sentences by group or peers. So you can definitely do this as a speedy game. They need to finish the sentence and then they need to say it out loud. Those kind of extra activity help them to enjoy your English class. They're not going to think that as too dull, right? So I got this from one of the example from the exercise from the book. And let's see. And now their time to organize their ideas over here before they get into it. So they're going to write down their monster, but you want them to include the looks, face, body parts, and feelings. So before they get into it, if you want to provide more body parts and face, I think it's a really good idea because you don't want to just limit the examples that they have in the model text. So through this one, tooth, ears, neck, chest, stomach, fingers, knees, and toes, they can definitely look at this and then do a little sing-a-song. Head, short. Those kind of kindergarten song might be a really nice exercise for them to acquire English word and then play a bit and extra, right? So this is one of the examples that you can expand a bit more words for them. And they can definitely utilize this word in their writing. And once they have this organization, now they're going to have this draft, and then they're going to do the revise and edit. So if you look at this one, this part, you can definitely see this My Monster cups. I always call them this edit cups with my students. So COPS means capitalization, overall look, punctuation, and spelling. So through this workshop, you are going to train your students to have an eye to detect their mistakes and then their errors over here. So it would be ideal for you to sit right next to them and then kind of make them be aware whenever they have mistakes and errors. But in reality, that's not possible. And then you don't want to correct your students' work with the red pen about their capitalization, punctuation, spelling, because that's kind of the minor thing that you want to focus on in your students' writing. So through this workshop, I think you can definitely have this COPS workshop with your students. So if they're overwhelmed, then start with just capitalization and then give them lots of examples and then make them be aware before they hand their writing, they need to check this capitalization. That's their job first. And then you can add about this overall look and then punctuation and spelling. So through this like gradual addition, they will be comfortable to kind of use these cups to check their writing. I think it's a really nice way to enhance their cognitive thinking, so they're not going to be too dependent on you to change a minor thing of your writing. And then if you look at this writing section over here, these are the things that I really like because looks, face, body parts, and feelings. Even though they did this organization part and then drafting, we provide some clues right next to them. So they need to locate their sentences right next to the colored hint in their writing. I think it's very brilliant. And oops, I think I changed the slide over here. So this one should go before the revise and edit. So it's the same. So after they finish this graphic organizer, they're going to change that into this draft part. And then this mini check and revise part, definitely you can train your students to look at that too. So Now I'm going to go to this finer draft part. So once they have this revise and addition section, then they can definitely transfer that into their finer draft. And whenever I train my teachers, especially for writing class, I always want them to do a little formal presentation of their final like product. If your students are too shy, they barely speak a word in front of you, then you can definitely do as a peer group, like sharing first. And then if they like their peers writing, then give them a sticker or 2 thumbs up, whatever you wish them to express their like feelings about each other's writing. And once they get used to do these peer activities, then you can expand that to group of 3, 4, at the end as a whole class. And the other way that you can do is just a display finer draft around the classroom, and then they can stand in front of each other's writing like pieces, and then they take turn, and then they can give out some comments about the writing. And kids are kids, so they can be very mean. I don't like this writing because I don't like him. That could happen. So you can definitely kind of give them some sentence structure so they can use to give a positive like feedback to each other. So that's the thing that you can definitely train your students gradually. The youngest group that I've ever seen to do this kind of sharing was, to be honest, pre-kindergarten. So those are really like pre-human beings, age 5, 6. They can definitely do it after you train them like for 3 or 4 months, then definitely do it. Okay, I think I pretty much covered everything. Oh, it's already 8 p.m. So I think I pretty much covered the all over here. If you look at the writer series, it's 9 book total. So I think we have write series too. So you can definitely mix your writing classes with the write it and then write series. So it's up to you. So you can look at the titles and then everything, and then you can definitely find what you want from the series. So I think it's time to do a Q&A. I know that you might have some questions about this writing series or writing class general. So I'm happy to have this Q&A with you guys. Okay. Very quiet. Thank you for having me during your Saturday like afternoon. I know that's not a good timing. Anything else? Any complaints and then your worries? Okay, I think it's pretty much it, right? Okay. So, meanwhile, it depends on your curriculum, actually. While certain schools in Korea and also like Taiwan, Mexico, you can name it, certain schools, they use this book as a supplementary. They finish their course book and then they use this for 1 or 2 hours a week. And certain schools, they finish one book in a year. And if you have more time, and then if you want to take it in a speedy way, then certain schools, they finish the book in 6 months. So it depends on. We mentioned that 9 books, but you don't need to take all these 9 books. So if you wanna use the book 1, write it beginner book 1 and 3, and then write it 1 and 2, and then write it paragraph essay to 5 the 1 and 3, you can definitely make that as your like elementary school program if you want to do it. So it depends on your students' level and then your class hours. So you can definitely talk to the consultant in Turkey. I think they know the reality really well. I met some of them. They're brilliant. So you can definitely consult with them. And then if they need our help, then we are more than happy to help them to figure out how many books that you need to take to finish the whole school years. Anything else? Okay, so I think that's it for today. And I hope you guys are finding this as useful. And also, I really wish that you all stay safe and then healthy till this is finished, right? So thank you a lot and then enjoy your Saturday. Bye, guys.